When the Monkees first toured Australia in 1968, fans were hospitalised for hysteria. And 50 years later, the fans of the Monkees are just as passionate. Michael Nesmith and Micky Dolenz are the only surviving members of the hit band.
The four of you connect pretty quickly?
Instantly. It was scary.
There were no duds among us, except me. But I wasn't really a dud. I played one on television.
You know, Bob said to me, well, Bob Rafelson, so, well, we could have hired any four guys. I said, yeah, but you didn't. You hired us four. He said, well, but any four guys could do what you're doing. I said, no, they couldn't have, because what we are, we brought the force of our character to it.
No, we're going to retour again next year.
You are.
Absolutely. We'll tour until one of us drops. Then the other will go on as the monkey.
They didn't call them the Prefab Four for nothing. The Monkees weren't born out of garage jams or smoky club gigs. They were manufactured straight out of Hollywood's machine, a made-for-TV band that somehow conquered the world in the swinging 1960s. But in 2019, the glossy smiles cracked wide open when a shocking move ripped apart the dream. The drummer who gave the group its heartbeat walked away from what could have been their biggest reunion tour ever. Fans were crushed, and those so-called brotherly bonds left shattered in the dust. What could drive a man to turn his back on decades of shared history? Micky Dolenz wasn't even supposed to be the drummer, and that's the twist. Born George Michael Dolenz Jr. in Los Angeles back in 1945, he had already tasted fame as a child actor before music even crossed his mind. When the producers of a daring new TV show came calling in 1965, they weren't looking for rock rebels. They were casting roles. Think the Beatles colliding with slapstick sitcom comedy, and you've got the formula. Dolenz had been in front of cameras since the 1950s, starring in Circus Boy, but music wasn't his destiny until television rewrote his fate. By sheer chance, he became the wild-haired drummer in a band that technically didn't even exist until TV executives created it. When the Monkees premiered on NBC in September 1966, it exploded into an instant cultural phenomenon. But here's the kicker. Unlike real bands of the era, the Monkees weren't discovered on stage. They were manufactured to sell a fantasy, with each member cast like characters in a script. The critics sneered, calling the Monkees a manufactured boy band, but the numbers told a different story. The so-called fake band became a cultural juggernaut, outshining even the Beatles and the Rolling Stones on the charts. Imagine that, more records sold than the biggest rock legends of all time, all while being dismissed as nothing but a TV gimmick. But behind those teen dream smiles, tension was bubbling hotter than anyone realized. From day one, Micky Dolenz, Davy Jones, Peter Tork, and Michael Nesmith weren't even trusted to touch their own instruments in the studio. Producers had top-tier session musicians record the tracks while the boys just posed for cameras and played pretend. For some, it was easy money. But for Nesmith, a legit songwriter with real chops, the humiliation was unbearable. He wanted to be taken seriously, not treated like a puppet in someone else's game. And then there was Micky Dolenz, the accidental drummer who had never held a pair of sticks before this gig. Instead of folding under the pressure, he went all in. With no formal training, he banged away with headphones on between takes, quietly turning himself into the heartbeat of the group. I had to learn to play drums while we were filming, he later admitted, showing just how chaotic the ride really was. That raw determination gave the Monkees their wild, punchy sound that fans couldn't get enough of. By 1967, the boys had enough of being treated like props. They fought tooth and nail for creative control. And shockingly, they won. For the first time, the Monkees picked up their own instruments, wrote their own songs, and proved they weren't just actors in a corporate fantasy. They were real musicians demanding respect. When headquarters dropped, it finally silenced the doubters, at least for a moment. The Monkees showed the world they weren't just actors in a costume band, but real musicians who could play, write, and deliver. But the scars of being branded as fake never fully faded. And by the time the show was canceled in 1968, the damage was done. Just 2 years later, in 1970, the group split apart for good, or so fans thought. What followed wasn't clean breakups or neat goodbyes. It was decades of messy, on-again, off-again reunions that exposed just how fractured things really were. Through the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, Different lineups of the original four would crawl back together for anniversary tours, new recordings, or quick money grabs. But every time the same demons reappeared. Arguments over creative direction, fights about money, and old wounds that never fully healed. The biggest reunion spectacle came in 1986 for their 20th anniversary. Shockingly, all four original members reunited, cut new tracks, and hit the road for a major tour. At first, it looked like a triumphant comeback. Fans packed venues, records sold, and nostalgia was running wild. But even then, cracks showed fast. Michael Nesmith walked away before the tour even wrapped, leaving the others scrambling. Still, the commercial success proved something huge. The world wasn't done with the Monkees just yet. Even after years of drama, the fans who grew up glued to the TV were still hungry for more, no matter how chaotic it got behind the scenes. But the magic of those reunions couldn't last forever. In 2012, tragedy struck. The sudden death of Davy Jones crushed both the band and the fans who had worshipped him as the Monkees' heartthrob and golden-voiced frontman. His passing left a hole that no tour, no reunion, no tribute could ever truly replace.
His loss was completely unexpected to you guys.
Yeah. The youngest of us to go first.
When you first had to go out there without Davy, how did that feel?
Micky said, well, how am I going to sing Daydream Believer?
Right.
And I said, well, you can't. It doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to them.
Sing along with Davey!
Then, just 7 years later, in 2019, another devastating blow hit, the death of Peter Tork. With only Micky Dolenz and Michael Nesmith left standing, the once Fab Four of TV had been reduced to a fragile duo, haunted by the shadows of their fallen brothers. These losses changed everything. Any future reunion wasn't just about music anymore. It was about memory, legacy, and carrying the weight of two ghosts on stage every night. Dolenz and Nesmith weren't just aging rockers. They were survivors tasked with keeping a dying flame alive, even as their own health and perspectives shifted with time. So when whispers started spreading in early 2019 of a massive reunion tour, just Dolenz and Nesmith this time, the Monkees fan base erupted with excitement. This wasn't just another nostalgia grab. This felt like the last chance ever to see the surviving originals perform together. Promoters smelled big money. Nostalgia tours were cash cows, and the Monkees could still pack arenas despite their age. At first, everything looked good. Both Dolenz and Nesmith seemed ready to honor the memories of Jones and Tork while delivering fans one final emotional farewell. But then the cracks appeared. Behind the scenes, fundamental disagreements started bubbling between Dolenz and the promoters. Promises turned into arguments. Vision clashed with money, and suddenly the dream tour that was supposed to heal old wounds threatened to blow everything apart before it even began. The first cracks in the so-called farewell tour dream came fast, and it all started with the set list. Promoters wanted a safe money-making show packed with only the biggest hits. I'm a Believer, Last Train to Clarksville, Daydream Believer. They pictured a jukebox concert built for casual fans and nostalgia dollars. But Micky Dolenz wasn't having it. To him, reducing the band's legacy to a handful of radio singles was an insult to everything they had fought for over the years. Then came the money fights, and that's when things really got messy. With only 2 surviving members left, nobody knew how to split the pie anymore. Promoters wanted a simple 50-50 cut between Dolenz and Nesmith. But Dolenz pushed back hard, insisting that the estates of Davy Jones and Peter Tork still deserved a share. To him, it wasn't just about cash. It was about respect for the men who built the Monkees' name alongside him. Promoters, of course, saw it differently. Why give away money to ghosts when the living were still on stage selling tickets? But the final blow came when Dolenz demanded full creative control of the show. After more than 50 years of carrying the Monkees on his back, he felt he had earned the right to shape the band's final chapter. He wanted to dig deeper into the catalog, share personal stories about the fallen members, and give fans something more than a shallow greatest hits package. Dolenz envisioned an intimate, heartfelt farewell, but to the promoters, it looked like a risk that could kill profits. And just like that, the battle lines were drawn: art versus money, heart versus business. The promoters couldn't have cared less about heart. They only saw dollar signs. They wanted a glossy, hit-heavy show, the kind of streamlined concert that would drag in casual fans and guarantee maximum ticket sales. Dolenz, though, wasn't buying it. "I wanted to do something meaningful, something that would truly honor Davey and Peter," he later admitted. "But the promoters just wanted us to play the hits and keep it simple." That one quote revealed everything. The man wasn't chasing money, he was chasing legacy. And that's where the war really ignited. Dolenz had hit a point in life where profit didn't matter as much as principle. At 74 years old, he knew the clock was ticking. This wasn't just another tour. It was possibly his final chance to tell the Monkees story the way he felt it deserved to be told. But the promoters weren't budging, and the standoff became impossible to ignore. Then came the bombshell. Just weeks before the official announcement, Dolenz stunned everyone by pulling out completely. The entertainment world was blindsided, and fans who had been clinging to reunion rumors were crushed. What was supposed to be a final celebration of the Monkees' legacy collapsed overnight into chaos and heartbreak. The fallout hit hardest between the last two survivors. Michael Nesmith, who had been fully ready to join the tour, suddenly found himself abandoned by the only bandmate he had left. Decades of friendship were thrown into crisis. Industry whispers claimed the two exchanged heated, emotional phone calls, desperately trying to patch things up. But the damage had already been done. What was supposed to be their last ride together had turned into their biggest fracture yet. The press went into overdrive trying to piece together the shock collapse of the reunion. At first, whispers floated around blaming health issues or vague scheduling conflicts. But that smokescreen didn't last long. Insiders leaked the truth. This wasn't about illness. It was about money, control, and two clashing visions of what the Monkees' final bow should look like. The dream of a last hurrah had been destroyed not by time, but by the same creative and financial battles that haunted the band since the very beginning. Instead of bending to the promoter's will, Micky Dolenz took a defiant path. He turned his energy toward preserving the legacy his way. No watered-down greatest hits show, no cheap nostalgia cash grab. He dove deep into the archives. Dolenz began spearheading deluxe reissues of the Monkees' catalog, pulling out hidden gems, rare versions, and tracks that proved the band's artistry went way beyond their teen idol reputation. For the first time in decades, the public got to see the group's music in full color, not just the glossy highlights. At the same time, Dolenz hit the road solo, but on his terms, intimate shows where he told raw, unfiltered stories about his time with Davey, Peter, and Mike. He shared memories, laughter, and heartbreak, painting a picture of the Monkees' journey that no scripted TV show or flashy reunion tour could ever capture. Fans showed up in droves, proving Dolenz right. People didn't just want shallow nostalgia, they craved the deeper truth. But behind the applause, one fracture still lingered. The bond between Dolenz and Michael Nesmith never fully recovered. Decades of friendship and music were overshadowed by this final rift. The last two Monkees couldn't agree on how to carry the legacy forward. One chasing intimacy and authenticity, the other left feeling abandoned. And with that, the Monkees' story closed not with harmony, but with a bittersweet silence. The personal cost of Dolenz's decision was heavy, and it left a bittersweet mark on the Monkees' legacy. By walking away from the reunion, he didn't just break the hearts of fans, he fractured his bond with the only surviving bandmate left. What was supposed to be a final celebration of brotherhood ended as another reminder of how fame, money, and pride can tear even lifelong partners apart. Yet, Dolenz never wavered. He doubled down on his mission, refusing to let corporate suits or greedy promoters dictate how the Monkees would be remembered. And history is now proving him right. His archival reissues have been hailed by critics for showcasing the Monkees' true artistry. The deep cuts, the alternative takes, the overlooked tracks that revealed they were far more than a made-for-TV gimmick. With every release, Dolenz carved out proof that the Monkees were a real band with real depth, and not just puppets of a 1960s television experiment. Fans may never get the blockbuster reunion tour they dreamed of, but what Dolenz gave instead was arguably more valuable: honesty. Through his solo shows and carefully curated projects, he delivered the raw, unpolished truth of the Monkees' journey, complete with laughter, chaos, and heartbreak. And that's the legacy that endures today. Not a manufactured image, but the full, messy, beautiful story told on Dolenz's terms. And that's the tragedy of the Monkees' final chapter. The band that once outsold the Beatles and the Stones didn't end with a bang, but with a fracture between the last two men left standing. What began as a TV experiment turned into a global phenomenon. But behind the laughter and the chart-topping hits was a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and battles over how history should be written. Micky Dolenz made the choice to walk away, not because of weakness, but because he refused to sell out the memory of his fallen brothers. And while fans may have lost their last chance to see the Monkees together, what survived was something even rarer in the music industry: artistic integrity. Dolenz showed the world that sometimes the most powerful legacy isn't built on ticket sales or flashy reunions, but on telling the story the right way, no matter the cost. The Monkees' tale is one of fame manufactured in a boardroom, torn apart by egos, stitched back together by nostalgia, and finally sealed by principle. And that's why this saga will never fade. It's bigger than just pop songs. It's a warning about the price of fame and the fight to control your own legacy. If you think this was explosive, just wait, because at BarzBuzz, we bring you the stories they don't want you to know, the scandals behind the smiles, and the truth behind the legends. Stay tuned. The next bombshell is already on its way.